Hilary here for Waterlogged on behalf of saltwateraquarium.com. If you have been following along for my move series of videos, you probably have a good idea what this is about. But if you are new and are just joining, thank you for joining us, and I encourage you to take some time after you finish this and go back to watch the move series. I put a lot more detail into everything it takes to move fish and aquariums and coral that I'm not going to go into so much detail here, but let me give you a little bit of backstory. So several months back, I moved from Las Vegas, Nevada, all the way up to Washington State. And of course, I brought all of my animals with me. Now that included a land hermit crab, a mini pig, and of course, my 3 different fish tanks. I used to have a 75-gallon Fowler tank that was home to my large red hairy hermit crab. I also had a 180-gallon Fowler tank that was home to my cowfish Frank, and I had a 20-gallon nano reef tank that I had had for several years. Now, one thing about this reef tank is that all the corals in it were outgrowing their space. For a while now, I was doing my duty and cutting the frags so they had more space to grow, and it got to the point where I wasn't even able to get rid of them. I ended up actually feeding them to Frank the cowfish because they like to eat corals just so that they wouldn't straight up die in the tank. Now, another issue that kind of motivated me to want to upgrade my reef tank is because I've been to all of the Reefapaloozas and several other trade shows throughout the course of the last year. And I gotta tell you, it's really hard to be surrounded by all of those gorgeous, beautiful corals and want to be able to take them home with you, but know that you don't have space. So I knew that at some point after I moved, the reef tank was going to be upgraded. Now, rewind just a little bit. So for several years, I have known the people from Red Sea, and we've talked multiple times about trying to figure out how we can do a collaboration together. And it really wasn't in the cards up until now. During the course of the move, I was hoping for the best. I planned for the worst, and more than the worst actually happened. 2 of my 3 different aquariums broke. So I called up Red Sea and I was like, I think this might be a good time. So they were kind enough to gift me this setup with a couple of rules. First thing is that they wanted me to continue making videos like I usually do in my typical style. All right, that's easy enough. The second thing is that they wanted me to use their guide and their method, from picking out the tanks, using the resources online, all the way through using the recipes that they have set in place to take you from no tank at all the way up to a successful, mature reef tank. Which, all right, that's easy enough. I can totally do that. I've taken care of Red Sea tanks in the past when I used to do service and maintenance, and they are gorgeous systems, and I couldn't be more excited to have one of my own now. But now that we have the agreement, the hardest part was picking out the tank. I gotta say, it took me several months to decide what kind of tank that I actually wanted to get, but let me give you some of the things that I took into consideration and kept in mind when it came to selecting this tank. First thing was space. The place that I used to live had a lot more space than I currently do now. While I do now have a dedicated office and fish room, I don't have as much space as I used to. So I wanted to make sure that whatever tank I got would fit in the space that I had and wouldn't make it feel too cramped. Along those same lines is clutter. I don't know about you, but I've got fish stuff everywhere. I've got fish stuff in my living room, I've got fish stuff in my bedroom, out in the barn, everywhere. So I wanted to make sure that everything that I would need to take care of that tank would be able to fit underneath in the cabinet of that tank. So that was the second consideration. The third thing is weight. Now, I go into way more detail on this in the previous move series videos, but if you don't have a house that is on a concrete slab, you need to take the weight of the tank as well as what it weighs with water and livestock and rock into consideration. There's a limit to what your floors can actually hold, so I wanted to make sure that I wasn't exceeding that weight limit. Now, the last thing that I took into account when it came to picking out a tank was the dimensions of the tank. So here is a short example, and this isn't the thing that I used, but take a blue hippo tang. So if you watch them swim, they're a lot of times going to be back and forth across the tank. But if you compare that to another fish, say a wrasse or an anthias or something like that, that is going to be swimming up and down in the tank, you're going to want a different sized tank with different dimensions to better house those species that you're keeping, so that you can better mimic those environments that they are naturally in the wild. And so that's something that I had in mind. While I love the look of square tanks, I really wanted something a little bit longer and more rectangular. Now, something else that I forgot until just now is that I do a lot of traveling. So the size of the tank, the volumes of water that it has, I wanted to make sure that it was large enough that it didn't have a lot of water swings, especially because I'm out of town. Whoever's taking care of that, I want to make sure that they're not going to be stressed out about something like that. Plus, a larger tank means you can have more fish and coral, right? So, if you will come back and join me for the next video, I am going to go through in detail a little bit more in depth on my selection process and show you some of the amazing features that Red Sea has on their website for helping you to pick out the tank of your dreams. Huge thank you to Red Sea and saltwateraquarium.com for helping to make this dream a reality. I appreciate all of you for joining this journey and for following along. This has been Hilary for Waterlogged on behalf of saltwateraquarium.com. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.